What up? It's a Dropping Dimes podcast. I'm your host, Mark Veer, and welcome to episode number 21 with the GASO guys. Fellas, how we doing?
Ready for it, baby.
Yeah, you should give us the questions, man. We're ready.
Well, I appreciate you all coming on. Unfortunately, we're missing Timmons, as you saw on the flyer. There was 4 of you guys coming. Unfortunately, he's got the flu, so hopefully we can try to get him on at a later time. And if you're listening, Timmons, I hope you get well soon. I know some of you have listened to previous podcasts, and we've just kind of leaded up to this. Now we're getting more on a national stage. We're going to talk San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, mostly in Texas, but I do appreciate you all coming on. Never easy trying to get multiple guests. I know we weren't able to get on last week, but I do appreciate you taking the time to get on here and just help youth basketball. That's what we're all in this for. So thanks for doing that. To get started, let's just do some intros, kind of tell everybody about yourself, what your role is with GASO, and currently what you're doing today. Blue, we'll start with you.
Yeah, gosh, I've been around since 2001 with this with GASO, and it's been a bit of a journey, and when you're talking about recruitment and stuff like that. But I'm one of the evaluators here at GASO, one of the directors of the tournaments. I go back to the 90s where I was running Mike Wacker's Converse Judson basketball team in the summer. So I took teams to the GASO, and I was a manager at Stephen F. Austin Division I. So I got to see that perspective, and then I went on to Texas A&M Kingsville, recruited down there, and so it's I have a wide variety of things that I can think back to and experiences. And so here it's 2025 and I'm still here. I mean, it's the longest job I've ever had.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Everybody knows Blue. Like, they may not know your name, but when you see him, you're like, okay, that's the GASO guy. It's like me over here, the factory guy. Everyone keeps me out. That guy is at the factory. So yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing that. Matt, same question for you.
Yeah, and I'll just touch on Blue didn't give his official title. He's Chief Communications Officer. He is the guy that you're going to deal with if you're not logging on our site and signing up for an event. Blue is that guy. I'm the Director of Business Development at GASO, which necessarily means I have the freedom. Sam graciously gives me the freedom to push the brand forward. So I throw a lot of ideas at the wall. Most don't stick, some do stick. And then I really am passionate about making our operation at GASO super efficient. And so I kind of run things like the skeleton of the scouting service, like the back end, we're redesigning our website right now. I've taken the lead on that. I also am really into just the recruiting side. I founded Recruiting Simplified, which is a DIY blueprint for getting recruited for players. And, I'd be remiss to not mention Sam or Blue or Lyndon or Michael with helping me with that process. It was a total team effort, but I kind of spearheaded building that course. And then obviously I'm a recruiting analyst as well. I evaluate players and communicate my evaluations to college coaches, just like Lyndon, Blue, and Michael here, and Tim as well.
Appreciate that, Mass. And then last, Lyndon.
Yeah, this upcoming year will be my 10th summer with GASO, working for them. Basically started as an intern. I'm on the old TexasHoopsRivals.com, getting $10 a story to write game recaps and hit on as many names as possible. And then every year just kind of snowballed into more and more responsibilities. Was a coach at the high school level for a little while, but now I'm our chief editor of the GASO Fast Break newsletter, the only publication that's a weekly coverage of everything high school, grassroots, anything happening in the state of Texas basketball scene. And obviously with these guys, evaluating as many players as we can, advocating for players or the college coaches. We're wearing just about as many hats as you can, because it's really a team effort and everybody's got to, make some sacrifices here and there, do some different jobs that maybe they're not comfortable with, but, we get it done at the end of the day.
And if you haven't read the Fast Break newsletter, it's unbelievable. Like, it is so high level. We are so fortunate to have Lyndon on our team.
Make sure that I, before I forget, send me all the links that you can to this. I'll make sure I put them in descriptions to get as much information out as possible. So thanks for your intros. Let's just talk about GASO, how and when it was established, and just the history behind everything.
And I'll warn you ahead of time, Mark, I can talk, so guys jump in.
Yes, he can.
Punch me off.
Yes, he can.
I mean, this is part of, especially this first question, like the history, and I'll try to sum it up pretty quickly here, is that it started back in 1988 with Mike Kunstadt, the original owner. Sam Lowe owns it now. So Mike Kunstadt had this vision. He was a high school coach. He one of his closest friends was John Wooden. He ran John Wooden camps back in the 70s and 80s, and maybe at the start of the 90s. And so he talked to his friend John Wooden and asked about the scouting service and what he thought and if the country needed it. And he said yes. And so back in 1988, the scouting service started. Well, in 1989, the GASO, the Great American Shootout GASO tournament started, and it was just him. working with a couple of guys that came in to help. And so he started this, and not to cut into the mission of what we do here that Mass will talk about in a bit, but Mike Kunstadt wanted to connect college coaches with high school coaches because that's the way it was at the time. You had BCI and AAU was involved a little bit, and there were different rules. So he connected. That was his main purpose, was connecting the college coach to the high school coach, and then eventually the college coach to the summer teams, the summer coaches. And Sam came in 1995, I believe, when he graduated from college. And so they had tournaments back then that started off with about the first Great American Shootout. The first GASO in 1989 had 42 teams. When by the time Sam got there, it was growing into about close to 100 teams or so. Mass, do you remember the timeline?
Yeah, by 2008, I think it was 1,000 teams, and I think 2019 is around 2,000 teams. And
Yeah.
we say 2,000 teams. That's the total number of events. Probably about half of those are unique, which is incredible, from all around the country. And we have a little map of where every team has come from around the country. I think we've had in Alaska. We've definitely had Hawaii. We've had Australia. We've had England. We've had a
China.
bunch. We've almost hit all 50 states. It's really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. So once we got to the mid 1990s and Sam was there, it started growing, and then they implemented not just the what would be the open tournament in Denton. It was San Antonio, Houston, of course Dallas, and so forth. And then by the time I came along in the 2000s, it was just growing. I mean, youth sports, and we even saw this during the pandemic. Youth sports were growing, and especially when we got to 2020. We saw that it wasn't going anywhere. So this vision that Mike Kunstadt had really just took off back in the 90s, and then of course in the 2000s. And it was, I would not be talking, none of us would be talking here or have any credibility if it wasn't for Mike Kunstadt. And Sam Lowe has been a big part of that too. So that history has turned into 13, started off as one tournament back in 1989, up to 13 events.
We do 17 total if you include the GASO Fall Tour
Mm-hmm.
and the JUCO Prep Live event, and then we also have 2 individual events. So we're looking at 19 events total.
Yeah. And so, it went hand in hand, the scouting service with the tournament schedule and the crowds of college coaches. And so it just has gotten bigger. Obviously, when you go from one person running the company to hiring one other, and then here we are with 5 in 2025, that's just a testament of the efficiency of the company.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing the history behind it and when it was established. Add-on question for you, Masses. What is the main mission and goal of the GASO?
Yeah, I really tried hard to kind of root this down, and Blue mentioned it, but at GASO, our primary mission is to serve college basketball programs and coaches around the country. We serve hundreds of college coaches, providing college coaches with insights they need to recruit players in Texas and to ultimately win basketball games. Every decision we make is kind of underlined by that goal, which leads us to have events focus on evaluating players and recommending players to the appropriate level, while also advocating for all athletes who are good enough. So it's to connect. And then beyond recruitment, we're really passionate. Media has become a big portion of our job, as well as sharing this news of what's going on when we go to games or evaluate games. So sorry, I'm strobing over here. I don't know what's going on with my camera, but we're passionate about telling the real story. So if we show up to watch a 5-star recruit, we don't want to share a preconceived notion. So if another player steals the show that night, we want to talk about other player who performed well. And so our job is to capture what actually happens, not what we expect to happen. And I think that is something that really drives our group. And we think it's a separator in the space. We don't want to be about the buzz. We want to just tell the story of what's actually unfolding.
Yeah, love it. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it. Let's dive into the actual tournament. So next question for you, Lyndon, is how do you guys ensure the tournament's being highly competitive? I'm sure you're vetting teams, but you just said it, thousands of teams. That's a lot of work. So kind of just talk through the process, how you are making every single event. And it's hard, but try to make it as competitive and as close as possible.
Yeah. And it's a testament to the 5 of us, just how in tune we can be with, the teams that need to be pitted against each other. And big shout out to Michael, because he's kind of spearheaded this for us with these big events and putting brackets together, because it really is important. Teams don't want to play the same teams every weekend. They want to, if you're coming to a GASO, you're coming to get a taste of different regions of the state. If you're a San Antonio team who drives up to Dallas, you want to play the best that Dallas has to offer, or a Houston team that's in town, or a West Texas team, or an Oklahoma team, wherever they're from. We're just trying to give a competitive balance for these teams to where they get something new and they know they're playing in high-level games against teams that not only they can compete with, but they can shine against. It's not just a generic, silver elite team where they can blow out by 40 and everybody has a good time and they get to tweet their, we all had 20 points kind of thing. But they want to be able to show up and play in these high-pressure situations and know that they're going to have the coverage there provided by GASO to do it on a big stage.
Okay, add-on question for you. I know you probably haven't heard me rant about my tier system, but I'm from England, and we did a tier system back in England where I play basketball, and they do it in soccer, they do it in other sports. And do you guys do any kind of tiering system based on, the history of the team, where you feel they are? Do you do anything like that when going into either super pools or going into bracket play, or however that format is for that particular event?
The more information we know, the better. So if we can see a roster, we are so in tune with the players, we know what that might look like. So yes, in some respects there is, and we'll get it talking about it with the rankings a little bit more. We do have a tier system. Like we use it all the time. And it does strike more competitive balances. And what we tell people, we do a lot of bracket events on purpose. Okay. If you win brackets, we want to move you up. We want to see where you're standing. Live periods, if you win games, guess what? You get to stay on the main courts at the main facilities. We want to incentivize winning, and because we believe the best teams are the ones the college coaches need to see that typically have the best players. It all funnels down, and we like putting it in the hands of the coaches. But yes, we do tier the teams from the beginning, and then as the season goes on, we adjust and adapt according to how teams are performing.
Just to kind of round us off here, the main thing when we're trying to figure out, should this team play team A or team B, is the individual matchups. We're trying to be informed about the actual players on the team, not just what's across their chest. And, if there's a kid in San Antonio that's number 58, plays the same position as a number 53 kid from Houston in our rankings, we're going to set that matchup up because that's something that not only we want to see, but people across the state want to see. And that really helps us make these decisions on who to pit against who.
I love it. I appreciate you sharing that. I know the reason behind it is in San Antonio, we've had tournament directors on, obviously not to the level of you guys, but we're trying to make more competitive games in San Antonio. It's at the youth level as well, right? And I've talked about tier systems, and I appreciate you sharing this because it takes work. It does. And you got to watch a lot of basketball. You got to communicate. So it can happen if you guys are doing it on your level with the amount of teams you have. I know it can happen locally, and I'm selfishly asked that question as well for our local tournament directors listening. So I appreciate you sharing that. It can be done. So hopefully we're making some steps in the right direction down here locally. And let's dive into this. And we've talked on other podcasts about this. I mean, we're not producing a ton of Division I athletes on the boys' side out of San Antonio. And I think the narrative here in San Antonio is we need to produce more Division I players. I personally believe we need to produce more college players. To your point, Mass, you guys promote every single from all levels all the way down to JUCO. So question for you, do you feel San Antonio needs to focus more on what I just said? Or do you feel as a city, we need to just focus on, trying to produce more Division I players? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a recruiting course that the premise is like one of the foundational questions is what is the lowest level of college basketball you are willing to play? And the reason that's a foundational question is to find out the expectation of the person. And, if it's Division I, then okay, maybe it's not about basketball because it's just about a dream and saying you did it. But if it's like truly about basketball, like let's get you on to a court. And I've had a lot of kids in my program that start their recruitment at the lowest level, which may be NAIA, and then by the time it's over, they got a full ride to Division II. That actually happened. I had a player that actually happened to. I told him to climb the ladder. Hey, start at the lowest level you're willing to play. If you get a lot of traction there, take a step up and see if you're getting the same amount of traction. And fish around and let the college coaches give you the feedback. It's a case-by-case basis. Back to your original point, Mark, like if the kid wants to play college basketball, let's find a way to get him there. And there are a lot of ways to do that. And there are a lot of people that are willing to push and help. But like putting the expectation on you're a Division I, you're not a Division I, like it's going to come out, like it's going to happen. It's going to play out. There are so many stories about players starting at a level that they're better in and then moving up. I don't think that's the goal. I think the end of the the ball's going to stop bouncing really soon. So I think the goal should be college education and what we're doing after the ball stops bouncing rather than like a status symbol of Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. I've seen college change kids' lives at every level.
And Lyndon
So,
played at Division two. I mean, he can
yeah.
talk on that.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's no like 100% foolproof formula for how to develop a Division One player. Like there's just not. There's so many aspects and elements that come into this. You can have a Division One player playing at a 1A high school. Like there, may never happen again or have happened in the past, but you can have that be the case. There's just too many things to say, you know what, we need to put all of our eggs in putting more Division One players out there. It's just unrealistic. And I think that basically with what we do, like there's no better place in America to be somebody who wants to play college basketball because there's so many levels in Texas. There's, I don't know, almost 30 JUCOs. There's D3s all over the place, a really good D2 league, a lot of Division Ones from high major to low major. I mean, this is somewhere where, if you're putting all your eggs in that Division One basket, you're going to be disappointed, but you can still play really high level college basketball and still get your education paid for. And that's what it should be all about at the end of the day.
And Blue always talks about going to see every level of basketball because if you're saying D1 or bust and you haven't seen every level, it's kind of just misinformed. So, in San Antonio, there's every level of college basketball.
There is.
It's pretty cheap. So go see the games.
It's free. Go to Trinity. It's free. Go to Our Lady of the Lake. It's free. But one thing is, and especially here, when kind of ties back into the GASO and the way that we do things and tournament wise, after we get through the high school season and people start coming to play in front of us, that's how we know the players. We can get the matchups, and then you kind of see something in somebody else. And even if they move up a level from Division 3 up to Division 2, or they weren't even on our radar at first, and then all of a sudden now they're a D2 prospect. We have learned that really good things. It's not that you can't be a Division 1 prospect, but there some really good things have happened to people that do work hard and that go to a Division 2 and have moved up to a Division 1. That's not like he said it here. That's not the thinking process here, but it can happen naturally. And so it's not a dream I'm trying to burst here. Part of this is just being honest, but there's also the honesty also is if you're a really good player and you go somewhere, you can always jump a tier up.
Sorry, Mark. I got one more thing to add here too. There are a lot of coaches in San Antonio who understand what we're talking about here. And you see it because they're focused on regional recruiting and not necessarily national. And, understanding what their players' needs are, capabilities are, if they're a national recruit versus if they're a regional recruit. And guess who the most reliable regional tournament is in Texas? It's GASO. Come to GASO. Like, it's a shameless plug, but it's the truth. We have clients all over Texas, and if you're coming to our events, we get to see you and we get to push you. So, shameless plug, but it's the truth.
Yeah. No, that's great information. And I'm thinking more from a parent perspective as well, like parents' expectations. Like I agree. I think a lot of coaches do have a good understanding where their kids can play, but man, parents, they get a possible sniff of a Division 1 or they hear your kid can play D1 or that's it. They're all in and everything else is just left off the table, which I think is a really bad route to go. So great information. I appreciate you doing that. Parents, players listening, some really good nuggets to take away. Let's talk about some positive stuff in San Antonio. Let's talk about Brennan and Kingston Flemings. Just be real, right? So top 5 team in the country. I think they're 4 now. I looked the other day. I don't know. They're in the top 5. And then we have the best player in the country here locally. So Blue, I'll start with you. We haven't seen this a long time in San Antonio. We've had some great players out here, but I don't remember someone at this magnitude of Kingston and Brennan doing what they're doing. Just your thoughts on where they're at, Brennan and their culture with Cody and Kingston, and just, how good it is for San Antonio.
I think that this is probably a question that I tried to process over the last 4 years, probably since the first time that we saw Kingston and Cam on the court together at our September Fall Classic, Fall Tour in San Antonio. So the perspective here is that on an individual basis with Kingston, is he one of the best players of all time to come through? Well, I mean, he's approaching probably 2,400 points. He's won over 120 games in 4 years. Does he have to win that title? I don't know. Like it's a hard kind of question on an individual level to ask, but he's one of the best players that I have seen come out of San Antonio in recent years. I'm talking about, you don't want to throw this word around a lot, but how he dominates. Yeah, I mean, Lyndon saw it earlier this year. Like, he didn't have to have 20 points. He dominated by recognizing that his teammates were on fire from behind the 3-point line or getting the ball. I mean, he had 12. One game he might have seen what that you saw, Lyndon, wasn't like 5 points, 12 assists or something.
He took 4 shots in a basketball game and dominated. Like he handed out probably double-digit assists, had 7 or 8 rebounds, but like the entire flow of the game, and he's playing against national, like a team from Virginia that has a top 40 kid in the nation on their roster, and Kingston took control of the game without shooting the basketball 5 times. It's one of the most impressive things I've seen as an evaluator.
But he's matured along the way, though. I don't think that anybody can sit here and say that he's been the same player for 4 years. No, he's matured, and he's taken, I think, the toughness from wanting to show it to just playing with it, going out there and showing that I can dominate a game. I'm just better than you. I'm tougher than you. We're in this past September, they are playing TMI. Sorry, this is just facts. They're beating TMI by like 30 points.
Halftime.
He comes out of the game. The first squad comes out of the game. This is preseason. This doesn't mean anything. To them, it does, though. He comes off. They go from up 30 to up 18. Kingston, I think, puts the squad back in. They go up by 30 again.
And he's playing the middle of that 1-2-1-1, flying around. Like, it's not just his offensive ability, it's the effort he plays with and the speed he plays with. And it's been obvious this season. Brennan just plays at a different pace. And you know, they've got a real chance to bring the first 6A title home to San Antonio.
Since Jay, what was that, 2000?
No, 6A. I know that was 5A, but like 6A. It's never happened yet with 6A.
Hey, we'll take San Antonio will take what they can get. 5A, 6A, doesn't matter, man.
Well, no, point being is like Brennan's got the goods, and they got the undisputed number 1 right now.
And they're big 6A no matter what. I think Lyndon has already pulled everything.
Yep.
Hey, if you're not paying attention to the fast break, this guy has gone through every. This is something else, another subject, but this guy has gone through every single district in 6A and 5A and broken down big or small. Like, he has done the research on it, and he shows it in his GASO fast break. Brennan as a whole, I think that they have that rock star feel to them. The last time I felt that is probably with the Duncanville team, of course, Faith family. Brennan has that when they go on the court, and I don't think I'm exaggerating here. You know, it's it. And think back to when they to state that was during their sophomore season.
Beaumont United.
I'll go back to this.
Yes.
I will say also Camden Cowgill. He's approaching 2,000 points. Cody Cowgill's going to have 2 dudes on the same team with over 2,000 points. I mean, goodness, but going back to the state and who were they playing? Was it Beaumont United?
Beaumont United. They were down 15-20.
Yeah, and so they go for the win. Like,
they come all the way back.
Kingston was crazy down the stretch.
The second half was memorable. Like, it was like he's arrived, and it's like you're going to have to go through a brick wall to beat Brennan for the longevity of this guy in this group's career.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was really special to see that moment of him rise to the occasion against who was it on the Beaumont United? It was K. Dotson. Was Arsenal on that group? Arsenal was on that group.
That would have been
Paillet.
You got Paillet and Portia,
Paillet, and K. Dotson balling, and been there before, one state, and it was a not so fast, my friend. I can
still remember it.
It was a special moment. I think we all felt the moment.
Yeah. Beaumont United goes and double teams
Kingston in the final play. Yeah.
Yeah. And Camden has the ball. And to this day, there's from a prospect of being a fan / whatever that day, in the media row, is like, there's nobody else that I would rather have shoot that 3 than Cam to beat them. And it was just like a give and go that he threw the ball in. I'm almost sure he threw the ball in
right back.
The double team. He did leave him wide open.
It was right in front of us.
I don't know. Like, we're talking about some memorable moments here, Mark. Like, we're thinking through this and processing. So where do they have to be to sit here that they're one of the greatest teams? I mean, obviously go back to 1995 with Stan Bonowitz, 35-0, beating Plano East. Yes. I mean, Stan is an absolute. Think about this. When you talk about history of San Antonio basketball, Stan Bonowitz was one of the most successful college players, too, when he went to Tech. He held some 3-point records. They go 35-0 his senior year, and they were always on the cusp of going. Goodness gracious. They averaged 108 points in 32 minutes of basketball. And guess what? He's a legend. There's so much you can sit here and say about Stan Bonowitz, but he's only an hour and 15 minutes up the road coaching at Concordia. Like, To me, to put those things together, I mean, obviously coaching runs in his blood with his dad and so forth, but it's the history of San Antonio is just right up the road. And then all those guys that when you're reffing, or maybe you're sitting in the stands now because you do college basketball reffing now, that you get to go see a high school game, that all of those guys that kind of paved the way in San Antonio, you probably bump into them all the time.
I do.
I
Yep.
mean, so I mean, I'm getting chills just thinking about it, but do they have to win to really be called one of the greatest programs? I mean, are people going to go, well, that's one that should have happened, but never did? I mean, it's going to be fun here as we get into playoffs in the next week to kind of see where this all lines up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Him getting snubbed with the McDonald's All-American has not helped anybody playing Brennan. I can tell you that. Kingston played for me in kindergarten. That's how long I've known that kid. A very quiet kid, but I know he's upset. He won't say it, and and we're going to see something happen special. I know in these postings, they're making it a state. Now it's just determined what happened there. I put my money on that Brennan will make it to state, and very experienced. I think they got a really good shot. And I agree with you, but I think if they win state, I think they're going to be one of the top teams to ever come out of San Antonio. I truly believe that. I really do.
That's a 4-year period of it, though, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Great stuff. Okay, let's dive into rankings and Lyndon and Mass for both of you guys, right? So a lot of people want to know they're very subjective, right? And it's, you get a lot of heat. We've done some like local rankings, like top 25 local teams, and man, people are blowing them up and everyone gets upset. I always say if people get upset about your rankings, then they mean something, right? So people are taking notice to it. So just talk about your process, how you come up, the criteria, and then the importance of it as well.
Yeah, I want to start preface. Rankings are water. They're fluid. They're always moving and changing and shaking. We just timestamp them every 3 months, I'd say. But our ranking process is built on structure. We have 5 viewpoints that really get a say in it. And it is very heated. Like within our office, we are pretty harsh on each other sometimes and what we believe. And we aim to see players as often as possible. So our goal is for at least 2 evaluators to see each player once in high school and once in the club. So we want to see them in different settings, and we want 2 eyes because we know those games happen where, that we see the anomaly of 12 3-pointers in a game, or we see the anomaly of over 12, right? So we want a lot of data points there. Like I said, they're based on a balance of 5 different people and perspectives in our office that have different backgrounds, experiences, and expertise. And it's long and often heated. And we start with tiering players, kind of where we think they fall in the pecking order. And we go straight into a blind ranking. And what I mean by blind is Lyndon won't know my rankings going in, Blue won't know my rankings going in, and we do an average reveal and we just start going at it. And we kind of use those data points of our rankings to see where there's disconnects. Hey, why do you have this guy 8 spots lower than this guy? Let's talk about it. And we kind of shuffle and move and shake into what we kind of believe is the best of all of our opinions pushed into one. And like I said, at the end of the day, rankings are fluid and they're always changing, but something we are very proud of because we feel like we do a really thorough job. And like we do rankings over the course of 2 weeks, where we're talking, we'll revisit, we'll have a meeting set up for the next day for an hour. We'll do 20 spots, talk about it, sleep on it, talk about it. And like I said, we're trying to be as thorough as possible and see as many teams as possible to make these things really count. We have, understandably so, staked a big area of claim that we are ranking. And so we don't take that lightly, and we try and hit on every single kid that we can.
And Lyndon was once ranked himself, Mark. So
he
was a top 100 kid.
Yeah, from out of Munster High School, and Blue.
I heard you, man.
Blue and Derek went up there and found me at some small school showcase, and the rest is history.
And then right there, you started right out of high school with us.
Yeah, basically.
No, seriously. I mean, it's talk about the ranking.
No, I mean it's a long process, and me and Blue butt heads just about more than anybody else in the room. But it's all love, and it's just part of it. There's going to be guys in the rankings. We just dropped our 26 rankings last week, and there's already guys now think, God, we're too low on him, kind of thing. And it just shows you just how hard it is to truly pin down. Just because you're the number 10 player in the state does not mean that you're the 10th best player in the state. You could obviously elevate or, fall on that. It's just how it is. But I think the depth of knowledge and the fact that, with 5 guys evaluating your game. We're not going to fall into the recency bias just because we saw you go crazy in the last game we saw you. We're trying to get a full body of work to really evaluate from. And that's what it is. It's not just us signing off and saying, this kid had 30 points in this game, he can play mid-major Division I basketball. It's us trying to figure out where you actually fit, what translates at the next level, and the kind of brand of basketball that you can play at the college level.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I love, Mass, that you said it's like water is fluid. It changes, right? I think people don't know that. They see a number like, oh, I'm done. No, some kids may, maybe give you an edge. That may upset you a little bit. Okay, do something about it, right? When you see something you don't like, you got some choices to make. And so, yeah, appreciate
We
you.
have to hold it loosely, man.
Yeah.
We can't take our, opinions too seriously in a sense of like, hey, we've got to be open for change.
For sure. Yeah, I love it. Let's dive into social media. I got myself in some trouble a few weeks ago, and I'll give you the real context, and then Mash, you can kind of talk about how social media and recruiting and how we are in today's world. Is that there was a post from a kid in San Antonio that scored 27 against John Jay. He had a great game, but they lost by 59. So of course, me and my thumbs didn't like that, and I'm all about winning. Like winning matters to me, and you guys touched on it earlier. Like winning matters to you as well. If you're winning, you're going to get on the main floors in your tournaments. So I got in some trouble. I had to take it down. I got in some heat. I had some parents hit me up. That's not fair. Why are you talking? I wasn't talking bad about the athlete. Great for him. He had a great game. But then I started, the media guys started hitting me up, and then I haven't heard from them. And then I wanted to get educated about it. And their point was like, well, we're trying to help this kid that has no marketing, no one out there. He can't afford services and all these things. So I got educated. I said, you know what? On me, my bad. I apologize. That wasn't the purpose of it. But social media has changed so much. Like, I just don't believe if you're losing by 59 points, you want to post a video out there of your performance. I've been educated. It's changed, right? A coach is not worrying about the 59-point loss. They're worrying. They want to look at the kid, how they're playing in that game. Just talk to me, because I need to be educated, and a lot of listeners do, and just how the word is today in social media, the recruiting, the outreach, and how we are today in this space.
Yeah, man, that's loaded. I understand your sentiment for sure. I think on the other side of the coin, I think the media guys brought up a great point. Social media is it's a tool for recruitment. That's how I define it, and it has a lot of bad things too. Don't get me wrong, but social media gets your foot in the door. And just being online isn't enough, and you have to separate yourself, especially if your team is struggling like that. That's a good example too. This guy has to brand himself, and then it's all about branding yourself and catching attention. I can't count how many times a well put together highlight video has caught my attention and made me go watch a film. Mm-hmm. While the film doesn't lie, I would say a really good highlight can spark real interest and tell the story of what's actually happening. Sometimes, it cuts both ways. Like if someone asked for that film, they would notice that team lost by 59 or sure, whatever. But with it, I think separating social media as a branding tool for recruitment is the point here. And kids have to find ways to separate themselves because they are being pushed down the totem pole of recruitment. High school kids are the last to get recruited right now, and standing out and producing some sort of lead to a college coach really, really matters. Outreach, we'll get into that later, but when done correctly, it puts a lead into a coach's hands. And most times coaches are not looking to watch full game film when they're on Twitter. They're looking for leads. They're looking for 27 points. Let me double tap and see what this is about, and see if he's a good player. But again, I understand the sentiment. Like I said, it could cut both ways. He could pick that film up and be a little frustrated. Oh, that kid mindset might be not right or whatever. I don't know. But point is, I think branding yourself really, really matters in today's recruitment landscape.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Again, to my point, I need to take a step back and be more educated and be careful with my thumbs. So thank you for saying that. I've got better.
Not to kick you, Mark, but also when those college coaches are requesting that film, say that this kid is going to really turn out to be something, and they request that film, they want to see what kids do in those types of situations of where, we're down by 59 points, we're losing. How does he play? What's his emotional state on the basketball court? Is he just like at the end of the bench with the towel on his head? Obviously, this kid went out there and he was still producing. He was still playing hard to some degree.
So yeah. Yeah, I love that. Lyndon, anything to add to it?
Yeah, and basically just like Mass talked about with leads, if you tag a college coach in your, like if I tagged Andre Cook, my college coach at St. Ed's, he may not have the time to go track down a full game of mine or whatever if I'm just, tagging him out of the blue. But guess what? You can tag at Gasso Linden, at Gasso Mass, at Gasso Blue, at Gasso Tim, at iFilm Hoopers. This is what we do. We can go hunt down a film on NFHS or Huddle Fan or wherever your game film is, evaluate you. Maybe that leads us to come and watch a game of yours in person. Maybe that leads us to, hey, this kid can play, hit up a guy at the college level that we have a good relationship with, and that's kind of your way in. That way is, we keep our radar up 24/7. If you tag us in something, there's probably a 90% chance that we're going to watch it and try to get a real evaluation from, if not that highlight film, then an actual game tape on the back end of it.
Yeah, good point.
Hey,
And I like
he
that.
says
Go ahead, Blue.
he says 24/7. Man, hey, we'll start getting text messages from Ryan about 6 o'clock in the morning saying, "Who is this kid?"
Mhm.
But y'all won't hear from me
Yeah.
past 6 p.m. at night, though. That's the
that's
kicker
the
there.
thing.
So.
So it's ongoing.
Yeah, and I like, Lyndon, that you said you put the onus on the kid as well. I have a lot of parents reach out to me and they want AAU coaches and high school coaches to do everything for them. Like you've got to put in some work too, right? You got to reach out.
Hey, that's why my course,
Yeah.
my hook.
Exactly.
My hook of my course is it's less than a JUCO class. You can find out if your kid wants it bad enough by how he's going to outreach. I got the blueprint for you. You go push it. If you're good enough, you'll get feedback from the coaches.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Okay. I need that link from you, Mass. I'll make sure I get
got
it
you.
out. I need to go check it out as well. Sounds awesome. All right. Before we dive into the Q&A, let's talk about unsigned senior teams and that process. So I actually had some players reach out to me and like, hey, I'm into my senior year. I don't have any looks. Can I get a team for GASO and all that stuff? So what's the process? I know you do have unsigned senior teams, but how does that work out? Do y'all schedule them together? Do college coaches come look? What's the process?
So just in the last 10 years since I've been doing this, we used to be able to fill a full bracket just on the unsigned senior teams. And they would have a lot of interest. We would have guys signing late to JUCO, guys signing late to D1, D2, D3 off of these teams. In recent years, basically since the pandemic, that number is kind of dropped. Obviously, I think the biggest factor here lately is the fact that they've moved the live period back so late in May that a lot of guys are just, I don't really want to wait around until May, and I'll find my own way. I'll go, sign where I can right now instead of trying to elevate or jump another level or get seen by a different coach, that kind of thing. But just the way it's gone with how recruiting has shifted, and like Matt said, high school kids are getting pushed down because people are taking a look at the portal. They're taking a look at JUCOs. They're taking a look at preps and all that.
They have to recruit their own kids back.
Exactly. I mean, you're doing a fresh, sell on the program every 12 months as a college coach, even with the guys that you have gotten NIL deals with and had good years under you and developed under you and all the factors that come into that. But I still think there's a place for them. It's just kind of weird with the schedule right now. And we love to have unsigned senior teams because we can get them to compete against each other and be a really great, resource for a junior college coach that, I need 2 more guys on my roster. You got any unsigned seniors playing in your events? You're like, yep, here we go. You're going to see 24 of them in this game.
And I'll offer a different perspective. Invest in outreach. Your body of work is out there with your high school career. So you work on your game from home. Most kids got this device. Start reaching out. There's a lot of things you can do, and there's a lot of space. And, my advice to high school kids right now is just be patient because there's still a lot to be played out.
All right. Q&As. Let's get in. We got a bunch. I try to kind of dissect them a little bit for you. Blue, we'll start with you. What's the most unforgettable performance or storyline you've seen at one of your events?
Yeah. Well, I think some of it also is just more so the walking by and stopping to see what's going on certain courts. I mean, I remember when we started using Duncanville Fieldhouse, there was a game against Team Texas in Houston Hoops, and you had kids sitting on the top of vending machines. They had vending machines out on the court. You had kids sitting on top of there. You had people at the walls and the windows looking to peek through. And those are the kind of moments I remember, and that we have some photos of just like, just of these big crowds and this, what was happening on the court. I think one of the most, kind of to put it all together, De'Aaron Fox was probably just a memorable person in general. Whenever he wanted to, he'd go get 50. he could go get 40. No matter if it was in a preseason game, a high school game, or on the circuit. Like, that guy, you would want to stop and just watch him. He's the one guy that I always tell a story about, is that he took his team as far as he could to the regionals, and it was a one-man show, and it was De'Arian. The state missed out. Like, we've seen Tyrese Maxey go to state, Trey Johnson. We did not get that stage. He could not, just one final push is all he needed, and he was unable to get to state. And then I can't remember who they wound up losing to, but he just had a lot of memorable moments on the basketball court. Didn't matter who he was playing. He was just unbelievable.
I gotta jump in here and shout out Mass and his baby Own the State, because that is, I mean, if that event was a yearly thing and we got everybody to agree on it, it would be bigger than TABC. I mean, it was one of a kind, and the matchups where you had Cason Wallace versus Arterio Morris versus Keontae George and Anthony Blackson there, and just the talent that was on display was insane. And that's what I go back. That is the gold standard for any event, whether it's shoe, independent, circuit, whatever. That events can be like in the state of Texas.
That's awesome. All right, thanks for sharing those. Next question will be for you, Matt. How much stock do college coaches put into high school stats?
Man, I think they're kind of like a highlight reel. Like, they're for piquing interest, and it's like, okay, yeah, you did that. Let's see what that translated. And then the other part of stats that no one seems to talk about is the genetic stats, that the average center in Division I is 6'9" plus, or the average point guard in Division I is 6'1.5". Like, the genetic statistics of what it typically takes for a non-outlier to get there. So, your stats may look good on one side, but your genetic stats may look different on the other. Like, all this stuff has to marry to come together to play at the highest level. But to your original question, stats are used to pique interest and kind of tell the story of who you are. There's a kid named Ethan Williams, Skeet Horn. He was one of the first kids I worked with in the pilot program, and he was sending out his outreach with 8.2 points a game on 35% field goal shooting. Doesn't sound like a college player. But when you saw him, he's 6'5". He could guard 3 or 4 spots. He averaged 4 steals a game, 5 deflections a game. I was like, brother, let's sell that. Let's sell the stats. Stats can be deceiving. Stats can also market yourself, right? So let's sell the portion that you're good at and what you are as a player with your 6'8" wingspan. And he ended up getting a Division II scholarship, and it's kind of the linchpin of a defense, of a switching defense, because he can guard so many spots. He's a really special defender.
Yeah, great example. Appreciate that. And then the next thing is how frequently should you post game stats to social media?
As often as possible. You need to make it strategic. Social media is a marketing tool. They need to be short, high impact clips. Your best 5%. Nothing over 30 seconds. The coaches are typically looking for leads. I alluded to that earlier. They're not trying to see your story on Twitter. They just want to see, okay, I can write this name, tell my assistant to go check that out. And you just want to keep the momentum going.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Blue, next question for you. Do college coaches, this can be all of you, do college coaches personally reach out to you guys for input on players? Do you believe your opinions have influence with them?
I think that they do, because of our credibility. But this credibility started back in 1988, like I said earlier. I mean, it's I'm just blue. I mean, I was taught how to communicate with the college coaches, and one thing Mike Kunstad taught me was that when if you can't pick out the obvious, then you can't do the rest. And so I think that's why our opinions really matters, because we have been taught and trained. And I mean, some of this is what we're supposed to be doing. This is our job. And so it's, when we get a phone call, and all of us do, I mean, when we get a phone call, we try to talk through some things, but then also, when somebody calls about a certain player, I'm like, why? I will ask the question, why are you asking specifically about this person? Is it a Twitter follow-up? Is it a Twitter recruiting? Like, you just never know where that piece of information comes from. And I think that where our credibility is so great is that we can talk about that specific player that they are calling about, but also give them leads on others, because it's not easy navigating through the state of Texas to begin with. I mean, our jobs are not easy, because what Mass and Lyndon have talked about is like, we got to constantly jump on a call, watch film, get connected with the high school coach. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that go on. And sometimes, sometimes I learn a new name from a college coach. And I'm honest if I don't know the player. I'm like, hey, let me call Lyndon or Mass or Michael. Let me see or Tim. Let me see where this all stems from and why you're asking about this specific. So, oh yeah, I think that our outreach is because we're non-biased. I think that's key here. Is that I can go through a Rolodex of people that are on my phone that I've known that are still coaching after 20 something years. And so, and they pass down to their assistants and to their GAs. This is call Blue, call Lyndon, call Ryan, call Michael or Tim, because it's been very consistent throughout the years. I mean, I guess we wouldn't be standing here if we weren't unbiased going into 37 years.
Most of my conversations happen in two ways. People want to know about specific players, kind of as Blue alluded to, or they want a shotgun approach of, hey, I need 10 players that can do X, Y, Z. Give me those 10 players. So I'm typically, giving them options, and they've got to go catch the fish. I'm telling them which pond to go fish in, and they've got to go reel it in from there. So, the answer to your question is yes, they reach out, and those are the two main functions in which I serve pretty consistently.
Yeah, it's the five of us. Every time I talk to a college coach, I'm not just speaking on my own credibility. I'm speaking on Blues, on Masses, on Mike's and Tim's and Sam's, and even Coach Kuhnstadt. It's the GASO. This is a very tight-knit organization. We've been talking for the last hour plus about, how much we rely on each other. And so I'm not just going to take an outlier out of left field and just say, this kid, you need to go recruit him and end up being a bust, because it has to be something that we've all kind of come to a consensus on. And so that's the way a lot of these conversations will go. Sure, I'm going to be higher on some kids than Mass is or Blue is and vice versa, but that's just the way it goes. But we'd never, sell a bill of goods to a college coach on something that we didn't as a group really believe in.
Love it. Awesome. Okay, last question for you. Then we'll go to Lyndon, and we'll go to some quick hitters to end, just some fun. So what are the best showcase camps to attend, and which ones attract the most college coaches?
Basically, if you're a young kid right now, if you're a 20, 27, 28, 29, or a parent of somebody who plays basketball in those classes, GASO Next Gen Showcase is about as good as it gets, where you can announce yourself. I've plugged it on our GASO cast plenty of times, and this is Mike Timmons' baby as well, where basically this is the way to announce yourself, to build momentum organically with the GASO staff. Let us get to know your game. Let us, put you in the TBR system where we can kind of run through and say, oh, nobody's seen this kid yet. We need to go check on a game of his, whether that's in the summer or during the high school season. And then obviously we've talked about TABC is going to be the basically event in the summer that last year we had, I think it was about 340 college coaches. That might have been just at the Division I level that were in attendance at the SWAC and at Drive Nation and at high schools across North Dallas. Basically, those are the two events that I can just, put my stamp of approval on, say you're going to get noticed by either us or by college coaches if you ball out and show up and they believe that what you do translates.
Okay, let's close up some quick hitters. I don't know if you've seen the other ones. There's some fun. I haven't told you this, so it's going to be off the dome. So first question, what do you think the most undervalued skill is today?
Toughness. I think toughness is something that's really, it's a skill. And it's a skill that isn't talked about enough. I mean, how do you fight adversity? How are you playing when you're down by 49 points? What are the things that go into the makeup of that kid, that toughness? Because toughness, it translates.
Decision making. I love kids who can make a decision, simple reads, pitch the ball up the floor, just make simple plays and trust each other, and we'll be all right.
Yeah, for me, it's change of pace and having elite breaks, like being able to use hesitation, stuff like that. And I think that a guy in San Antonio who might be number one in the 2025 class has some pretty elite breaks himself. And that's why he's so effective as a ball handler.
I agree. As soon as you said like change of pace and breaks, I immediately thought of him. So those are really, really three very good answers. Love it. All right, next one. We're talking about tournament style. So super pool or straight bracket play?
Bracket play.
Bracket play.
You got to win.
Yeah, winning matters. And you guys do both as well. I love when you do.
We mix it up, but bracket's pretty fun.
Yep. Okay, awesome. All right, next one. One icon you could go to dinner with.
Nolan Ryan. I'd love to sit down with Nolan Ryan or Babe Ruth and just talk baseball. That's a hobby of mine. Okay. It's just baseball.
Dirk Nowitzki. I don't know how he just kept his cool. I don't know. I love what he did for the city of Dallas. Like his arc as a career was spectacular. I loved Dirk. I love Tim Duncan too, for the record.
Yeah, Mass kind of. I mean, there's two choices for me. Mass took the one, so I'll take the other, and that's Bill Walton.
Man,
Got the Grateful Dead hat and all. Just I feel like he could just go on and on for hours, and the stories and the experience. That's something that I can't pass up on.
That'd be a long dinner, but
long dinner.
Okay. Next one. Favorite basketball movie.
Favorite basketball movie? I mean, Hoosiers is kind of obvious, I guess.
Okay.
You know what?
Coach Carter.
Blue Chip. Blue Chip.
I love Coach Carter.
Blue Chips was when I was growing up, and to see those guys go out there and act and do that kind of stuff and kind of see a little bit
does
of
the Last Dance count? I really enjoyed that.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
It's a long movie. I would go Coach Carter.
Okay, Coach Carter.
The original Space Jam. I probably watched that on VHS about 500 times as a child.
Oh gosh.
Oh my goodness.
I knew you were going to say that.
All right, we got two more. Next one. If you could change one rule in basketball, what would it be?
Can I go first?
Go.
Yes.
While you think, I mean, put a shot clock in high school, big school levels. For the love of God, we are hurting the kids by not preparing them to play under the pressure and that type of execution you have to have with a shot clock in place. That's something that just has to change soon, because there's all kinds of associations out there that play with one, and Texas kids right now don't get that experience. And it, not that it's stunting us, but it's something that I think that they just need to have in the game.
And so it's coming. I had two ADs on from San Antonio. It's coming. They talk about it every single year. It's just the money. That's what they're just trying to figure out how to get in there. But I 100% agree with you.
I like the FIBA offensive goaltending rule, where if it's just on the rim, you can just go dunk it. Like if you can do that in a high school level, like I think it's a sick advantage. I also think it makes for some really fun highlights, and I love it. Low key though, the Elam ending rocks.
That is cool. Yep.
I think it's perfect for grassroots. It hasn't caught on yet, but I think it would be amazing if every game ended with a game winner.
We're going to do it here. We got shot clocks at the factory. We just got them, and we're going to do that with youth. We're going to do the Elam endings. I love it too.
It's the right way to play because it puts pressure on every possession. Good shots matter. Good decision-making matters. We do it in our overtimes right now, as far as we've gotten. We tried an event with it. Mixed reviews. People didn't really get what was going on, but I think it has legs eventually.
I agree.
Move the 3-point line to the college line.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Last one. You each get a pick, a lock, any class to win the state final this year.
God, who's going to be the villain here? Tough. Go,
man.
All right. I'm going to be a man of the people here. San Antonio Brennan.
My man. Thank you.
If it's
I'd pick them in big school and small school. I'm going with Lancaster.
Okay. I like those picks. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Lancaster's my pick as well in small 6. In 5.
5A's tough.
5A is really tough. It's wide open.
Lancaster.
I'm going to go Shadow Creek. Shadow Creek is going in Division 2.
That should be the game.
My guy Prez over there. Yep. Okay. Who you got? 6A big school, Blue. You can jump on a bandwagon, the three of us.
No. I'm. Why not? Why not? It's got to be Brennan's year.
Okay, love it. All right.
5A big. I'm going to go with Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial.
Oh man,
Billy White.
I know it's bold, but I do think that potential, Wagner CC Vets game is going to be a very good one in the Region 4.
I think Frisco Heritage is going to be my pick. Crazy in Big 5. I just love the pedigree and the showmanship and the gamerness of Cameron Lomax. Ellison, I think it's JoJo McIver's year.
Yeah, I'm going with Fort Bend Marshall with Sargent and Ian Lowe, and their 2 losses are to the 2 best teams in the state. I mean, they're just so tough and grind you out, and they can score. I'll take them in small school 5.
In big school 5A, I like Beaumont Westbrook. Why not ride that? Small school, San Antonio Jay sticking out a little bit. They're likely Division 2.
They could make a run, man.
Yeah.
We're all done. I appreciate you guys coming on. I know Blue the most. I've seen you guys around, but man, just talking hoops. We could talk hoops for hours, right? But just listening to you guys, how much you know is insane. Like you said it, I know every team. I know you do. You guys know everybody, and it's extremely impressive how much dedication you guys put in and all the consistency you do, the relationships you guys have, and that's why GASO is what it is, because of what it started out in the 80s, late 80s, and how you guys have evolved and worked your tails off to get where you are. So it's been really refreshing to hear from you guys. It's been great. It's a great podcast for parents, players, any basketball junkie to listen to and just get a lot out of it. I love that you guys said your outreach program. If people want to reach out to you, want to tag you, definitely send me the descriptions. I want to get information out. You guys are just here to help basketball grow, and that's what it's all about. So I appreciate you guys coming on, all the insight, the knowledge, all the hard work you do, all the stuff behind the scenes. Looking forward to playoffs, looking forward to state championships here at the Alamo Dome, and then looking forward to all your spring and summer events. And as we all know, the basketball never stops for any of us. So I appreciate you guys coming on. Take care, and we're talking to you guys again soon.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you for listening to the Dropping Dimes podcast. Make sure to go follow us on IG at Dropping Dimes Pod. Remember, each Friday we'll be dropping a new episode, so hit the follow and bell notification buttons to never miss any content. Let's get better together. We out.